So I've been struggling for quite a bit now, trying to get my life sorted out. Ever since I was younger, I was, very artistically inclined. I liked writing as a kid, and then I picked up filmmaking, and actually very recently I just picked up art. But I knew that I always wanted to do something creative. I never really knew how to make a career out of it, you know? I never actually went to college, and I was homeschooled too, so it's like I've never really had a formal education. That's kind of been a weird part of my life. Typically, you're supposed to get a good grades in high school, get into a good college, and then you get a good job, and then you buy your house, get married, raise a family, and then you retire like 65, and that's how life is supposed to be for most people. But I never took that path. And now at 26 years old, I'm starting to wonder what I've actually been doing this entire time. Well, I tried a few things. I tried my very best, to get into the film industry, and I'll admit I've struggled with that. I've definitely learned a lot about filmmaking. I've worked with some people, but I've always struggled with networking, as there isn't much of an industry here in upstate New York, and most of the film industry is located in very unaffordable places like New York City or Los Angeles. It's not that I've given up on film, it's just that I don't really know what to do at this point. I don't really know how to make connections with people, because they say it's all about who you know, and I'm not very good at socializing. I think maybe some of you might have picked up on this. I'm on the autism spectrum, which is a nice little debuff that I got when customizing my character menu before I was born, and now I regret that. But you know what? Hey, at least I'm good at memorizing stupid facts. I've also had an interest in writing. I actually just published my first book, and throughout most of my life I thought that I would never be able to publish anything, that I wouldn't even be able to finish a book. Now at 26 years old, I somehow pulled that off. How did I do it? Well, I just sat down and I forced myself to write at least one sentence every single day. One thing I realized was that no matter how I felt that day, no matter how tired I was, no matter how busy I was, even if I felt uninspired, I could always find the time to write one sentence. That sounds kind of lazy, just writing one sentence every day. But what I often found is that I could write several paragraphs some days, or even several pages some days. It was always very, very hard to motivate myself to do anything. I've always struggled with motivation. I've always struggled with really attention is really maybe the better word for it. I struggled with attention. I struggled with just focusing on one thing and seeing it to completion. So I found a way to take a problem and break it down into as many small problems as I could. And that's how I fixed the problem. And that's how I became a published author. I'm self-published, but it's still published. I still put in the work to finish a book. And I would often joke with my friends that I'd only sell 10 copies, and then everyone would forget about the book. Do you want to know how many books I actually sold? 7. I only sold 7 copies. I think we all want to feel useful. We all want to feel like we're contributing something, that we matter in some way. And I think for a lot of my life, I just felt like I didn't really matter. I just felt like I was sort of a background character in everyone else's lives. My whole life just felt very insignificant. Storytelling isn't just entertainment. It's a guide to living life. It shows us the grander meaning of things. It takes life and all of its chaos and all of its disorder and brings order to it. It's beautiful, because I think narratives can guide us to an even grander narrative, a grander narrative that's maybe a bit beyond our comprehension, maybe that we're not really ready to understand yet. In a way, I think I gravitated towards stories as a way of making sense of my own life. the my own pain that I was going through. There's just a lot of events in our lives that just feel so random, that feel so horrifying. You know, it's not just that it's painful, it's that it's painful and we can't understand it. And I think that's probably one of the worst kinds of pains that we can experience. In storytelling, we often see characters who go through unbearable suffering and they can't really make sense of the story that they're in. Now, we can, because we sort of have an external perspective. We're not trapped inside that story, but as for the character, you know, there they are, you know, suffering for her own entertainment. At some point, you know, the hero goes through what's called the dark night of the soul, where all hope is seemingly lost. And that's where the character suddenly discovers hope, where the character suddenly figures out, wait, there's a way out of this. And finally, the character is able to persevere through trial. And when we see him conquer, you know, his fears or whatever is troubling him, it's beautiful. We watch these poor characters that we grow attached to, and we just watch them suffer for fun. It actually seems kind of sadistic once you really think about it. But when the character conquers this great evil, and suddenly everything that you watch in that story makes sense. Every plot thread comes together, every character is fully realized, and then there's this moment where suddenly all the pieces of the puzzle just click and it all makes sense. I think that's what people want. People will wait their entire lives waiting for that moment where everything suddenly makes sense. And I think the tragic thing is that most people don't experience that. And going back to what I was saying earlier about organizing your life on a certain track, organizing everything on a very linear path, it gives us that sense of stability and predictability. It makes us think, okay, I know where this story ends. I know where it's going. And everything's going to be okay if I just follow steps A, B, and C. But if you look at the stories that we consume, we long for that unpredictability. We kind of like stories that keep us on edge, that we can't exactly predict. And why is that? Because the most important things in life are discovered when we dive into uncertainty, when we diverge from the path, when we take risks, when we don't know where we're going, and when we're terrified. When you go to the gym and your body feels weak as you lift weights, you're actually becoming stronger. When you ask someone out on a date, you know, it doesn't feel very romantic at first. It actually just feels very awkward and very terrifying. The best way to experience life is to make the decision that will lead to the best story. Not the decision necessarily that will make you comfortable, but the decision that will force you to change. The decision that will challenge you. Because that will be a life that will be worth remembering. People feel lost because they're living forgettable lives. They're living stories without conflict, without adventure. And that, I think, kills people in a way that they can't really understand. They don't really understand their soul is dying. I've chosen to make films. I've chosen to write books. I've to create art. But I don't really know where I'm going with it. I feel a little bit lost. And that scares me because, you know, whenever I make a video and publish it, I have no idea how people are going to respond. I don't even know if people are going to see it. But I think that's why I should do it, because it's the life that I feel like I'm meant to live. And I think perhaps that's the life we're all meant to live, is that we should all take these scary risks, take these big leaps into the unknown, because that's what creates stories, and that's why we gravitate towards stories. And you'll see a lot of people who live very, very safe lives, but they essentially live out their stories through proxy. All they do is consume video games, films, TV, or whatever you name it, and they live out through these dangerous adventures from the safety of their home. And I think that's fine to enjoy these kinds of stories, but at some point, you're going to feel an emptiness crawl inside of you because you're not actually living the story. You're only living a simulation of it. As for my own hopes and dreams, I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. And that does scare me. And I'm still in the process of figuring things out. And you know what? That's okay. We're often told that we have to be on that stable linear path, but there's really no rule saying that we have to. I will say, it is important to be sensible. It is important, of course, to have a stable job and to have, a place to live in and making sure that you're paying your bills on all time. I'm not saying that we should just forget all responsibilities and run into reckless abandon. That's usually a bad idea. But if you are watching this video right now, I would like to challenge you. Do one thing today that scares you. Do something that you find absolutely terrifying. Now, I'm not saying do something stupid. I'm not going to tell you to just run off a cliff, but do something that is both scary but would make a very good story. If you've been thinking about writing a book for a long time and you haven't because you're like, oh, it's going to suck and I'm going to make such an ass of myself, write it anyway. If there's someone out there that you really like and you've been really nervous to talk to them, ask them out. Or if you've been coped up inside for weeks and you don't really want to go outside and you're just starting to feel restless, go outside and just go on a completely random adventure. That's actually what I did today. I literally just got in my car and I just started driving and I had no idea where I was going. I had no idea I'd be recording this video today. It is going to be hard. It's not going to be easy, but there's going to be a day where you will be dying. You will be sitting on your deathbed and you're going to think about your life. And I can promise you this, you're going to regret the things that you didn't do far more than the things you did. Live your life from this perspective. Did I play out a good story? Did I take risks even when I didn't want to? Did I grow as a person? Did I spend time with the people that I love? You have to live a life that is worth dying for. You have to live a life that you can look back with satisfaction and not necessarily with ease. I can say this as a writer, one of the worst things a writer can do to himself or herself is writing a passive character, a character that things happen to, but they're never actually a actor in the story. They're only a reactor. These kinds of stories just suck because the characters never really grow as a person because they're always waiting for someone else to do something for them. Don't be that person. And I think that's the problem with most of our lives is that we're waiting for that hero to change our lives. And we end up having this very, very passive way of looking at things. I hope what I'm making is making sense. I am a little bit scatterbrained right now. I'm also making this video for myself. I'm making this video to motivate myself to keep moving forward because I am at a very scary point in my life right now where I don't know where I'm going and I don't know what I'm doing. But that's okay because that's where the best stories are told. Anyway, guys, I hope this video made sense. I know it's a little bit hodgepodge together. I know it's a little bit rambly at parts. I kind of just walked out into this random trail and just started thinking out loud. And I do struggle with speech a little bit. That's called having autism. But if you've gotten this far, thank you so much. And if you want, leave a comment telling your story. Tell me about the risks that you took today. Anyway, guys, I hope you all have a great day. See you later.